and welcome to TeleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is from the south. In Haiti, several roads in different districts of the capital, Port-au-Prince, were blocked by protesting police. Both current and former officers of the National Police mobilized to denounce the failed anti-gang operation in the village de Dieu on Friday, which resulted in armed clashes with the renowned 5 Seconds gang, in which 4 officers were killed and 8 others were seriously wounded. In addition, gang members seized police weapons and 2 armored vehicles. On Monday, the Haitian government announced 3 days of national mourning for the dead officers. The former de facto president of Bolivia, Janine Áñez, was transferred to the Women's Orientation Center of Obraje, south of the capital, this Monday, where she will serve her preventive detention during the investigation into her role in the coup against former President Evo Morales. Áñez will serve 4 months in custody as ordered by a judge under the charges of sedition, terrorism, and conspiracy in the 2019 coup that ousted the democratically elected government of President Evo Morales. In this regard, the Ministry of Justice presented 4 indictments against Áñez and several of her former ministers to the Attorney General's office on Monday in order to proceed with the investigations required to bring them to trial. According to a poll conducted in Chile, opposition is growing to the government of President Sebastián Piñera. The survey conducted by pollster Pulso Ciudadano reveals that 78% of the population rejects the Piñera administration, which represents 13 points more than a poll carried out 2 weeks ago. The data sheds further light on the widespread discontent with the government, which extends across all social sectors regardless of age or their sex. Even among citizens who identify themselves as right-wing, the opposition to the Piñera administration is 48.1%. According to the poll, support for the head of state stands at just 10.7% of the population, 4.2% less than in the previous survey. According to local media, Colombian First Lady Maria Juliana Ruiz is caught up in a corruption scandal linked to the publication of her autobiography. Investigations suggest that the First Lady met with the authorities of the General Archive of the nation in order to secure financing for her book for a value of more than 50 million Colombian pesos. Such a request is not permitted under the budget of the General Archive of the nation, meaning that the director of the institution would also be guilty of corrupt practice. The National Institute of Legal Medicine and Forensic Science of Colombia concluded the identification of 8 of the 10 bodies received on March 4th as victims of the bombing carried out by the Army in the department of Guavaire. The remains analyzed are those received in the municipal capital of Calamar. According to forensics experts, a girl under 16 years of age is among the deceased, but her identity has not yet been determined. The other 7 bodies have already been analyzed and identified. The deceased were between 19 and 30 years of age. Groups of mothers gathered in front of the government facilities as they have children who have been missing since the bombing. At least 2 lists with the names of the missing children presumed dead are circulating in Guavaire and have even been handed over to Colombian authorities. A high-level commission of the Colombian Ombudsman office was sent to the departments of Guavaire and Meta to strengthen the investigation into the high-risk situation of minors in those departments.
We express deep sorrow for the lives of children and young people who continue to be lost in the context of violence. We strongly condemn the actions of groups separated from FARC and other criminal organizations that forcibly recruit children and teenagers. Therefore, I make a strong call to understand that in Colombia, the recruitment of children under 18 years of age is a serious violation of international humanitarian law, which must be punished. I also insist that the recruited are victims, not criminals, and there is a special duty to protect them based on the prevalence of their rights.
An investigation by Brazilian media company Universo Online claims that President Jair Bolsonaro and his son, Carlos Bolsonaro, are part of a corruption scheme. The investigation focuses on more than 600 bank operations related to the Bolsonaro family, revealing a suspected embezzlement, which, in the case of the Brazilian president, would reach the sum of $100,000. The funds were allegedly withdrawn by employees close to the Bolsonaro family to be returned to parliamentarians close to the president and their relatives as part of what is known in the country as a rachadinha scheme. Such schemes typically involve elected politicians using state funds to take on a large number of employees who then funnel back their salaries to their boss. The president's oldest son, Flavio Bolsonaro, was charged with embezzlement, money laundering, and criminal association as part of such a scheme in November of last year. And Brazil's Socialism and Liberty Party this Monday denounced a lack of justice 3 years after the murder of the councilwoman for Rio de Janeiro, Marielle Franco. In a post on their Twitter account, the party noted it's been 3 years since they took one of us away. 36 months demanding justice for Marielle and Anderson, victims of political violence that does nothing but grow in the country. Marielle Francisco da Silva, known as Marielle Franco, was assassinated on March 14, 2018. She was a Brazilian politician and a human rights activist who advocated for the rights of Black women and LGBTQI minorities, prioritizing the empowerment of poor communities. She was an elected councilwoman of the municipal chamber of the city of Rio de Janeiro. 3 days before she was shot to death along with her driver, Anderson Pedro Matias Gomes, she had filed a complaint against police officers of the 41st Military Police Battalion for abuse of authority against the inhabitants of the municipality of Acari. We're taking a very short break now. Join us again after this. And also, don't forget to follow me on my Twitter account at Ibravo TeleSUR for more news. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. Spain's health minister announced the country is suspending the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine for at least a fortnight to become the latest European nation to do so over blood clot fears.
Given these alerts that have arisen and awaiting the detailed and rigorous analysis by the Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee, and always following the precautionary principle that guides all of our actions, we have decided to temporarily suspend it, at least in the 2 coming weeks, so that the European Medicine Agency, during the time it has asked to carefully evaluate these cases, and the national drug agencies provide responses to the signals.
Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez announced on Monday that the AstraZeneca vaccine will not be licensed for use in the country due to the reports of complications in patients who received the shot.
We have also reported that Venezuela will not give permission to use the AstraZeneca vaccine in the immunization process of our population because of the complications that have affected those who have been vaccinated with this vaccine. Therefore, President Nicolás Maduro has decided, taking into account the technical reports presented by the Experts Committee and the Therapeutic Committee, not to approve and not to grant a license for the use of this vaccine in Venezuelan territory. Today, we also wanted to inform that we held a meeting with the representative of the Pan American Health Organization in our country, with the purpose of denouncing the threat that these variants have appeared in Brazil represent, not only for the region and for the whole world, but also the impact they have in Venezuela as neighboring country to Brazil.
According to an exclusive investigative report published by independent media outlet Brazil Wire, the United States pressured the Brazilian government not to buy Russia's Sputnik V vaccine and dissuaded Panama from accepting Cuban doctors to combat the pandemic. Independent journalist John McAvoy revealed that an annual report prepared by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for 2020 confirms the pressure exerted by the then Trump administration on the government of Brazil to reject what is described as Russia's malign Sputnik V vaccine, a decision which may have cost many thousands of lives. The same document reveals that the department offered technical assistance to Panama to dissuade authorities there from accepting an offer of Cuban doctors who have been on the global front line against the pandemic, working in over 40 countries. Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro announced that he was removing his health minister Eduardo Pazuello and replacing him with cardiologist Marcelo Queiroga, representing the fourth change of the minister since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. This news comes as the country's health system faces collapse amid surging cases and deaths. The appointment of the president of the Brazilian Society of Cardiology to the post comes as the Bolsonaro government faces increased criticism for its chaotic handling of the pandemic and the president's denials of the severity of the crisis. The country's hospitals are inundated with intensive care wards in 22 out of Brazil's 26 states, nearing capacity. St. Lucia's Ministry of Health and Wellness informed the public that during the week of March 15th to 19th, COVID-19 vaccines will not be administered at vaccination sites around the island. The ministry explained on its official website that during the week, the COVID-19 vaccination drive will cater to individuals who are homebound due to age or immobility and unable to visit their vaccination sites. These individuals are asked to make an appointment at their nearest community wellness center to receive the vaccination at home. Authorities also asked for people's cooperation and said they will continue providing updates on the COVID-19 vaccination drive. This Monday, Paraguayan health officials denounced the collapse of the country's health system due to the increase in COVID-19 cases. The directors of several health centers have warned that intensive care wards are at the 100% capacity, with many patients waiting for a space. Thousands of Paraguayans are calling for the resignation of the government presided by Mario Abdo Benitez due to what they denounce as the mismanagement of the health emergency. Over the weekend, citizens lit candles in front of the Ministry of Health in memory of more than 3,000 people who have been killed in COVID-19 in the country since the beginning of the pandemic. The Japanese government is on alert after detecting a new variant of the new coronavirus this weekend. The virus mutation was detected in a 60-year-old passenger who arrived at Narita Airport near Tokyo from the Philippines and showed no symptoms. In response, the government tightened restrictions for travelers and border controls. It is believed that the new variant may pose the same level of threat as the Brazilian strain and could be more resistant to the antibodies generated by the vaccines. The Philippines has already reported over 300 cases of the variant. In Jordan, anti-riot police clashed with hundreds of protesters in the capital Amman on Monday, rallying against an evening curfew in the city. Security forces used tear gas to disperse protesters who were also angered by the death of at least 7 coronavirus patients at a hospital due to a shortage of oxygen. Demonstrators who defied the curfew for the third night have called on Prime Minister Bashir al-Hassane's government to step down. On Saturday, the authorities tightened restrictions and restored a weekend lockdown and nighttime curfews in an attempt to curb the spread of the virus. Jordan on Monday recorded its highest number of new daily infections since the start of the pandemic at 9,417. We're taking one short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. The International Court of Justice has allowed Somalia's case to go ahead in a long-running maritime dispute with Kenya, saying it regretted Nairobi's refusal to attend the hearings. Kenya earlier announced it would not attend this week's hearings after the Hague-based court refused to allow further delays in the case. The court decided to go ahead with the hearing to Somalia's case and use the written evidence provided by Kenya instead. Somalia has asked the ICJ to rule on the dispute, potentially deciding control over a large area of the Indian Ocean that is rich in fish and could contain significant crude oil reserves.
The seating is open. The court meets today to begin the oral proceeding in Kenya and fix.
Congresswoman Deb Haaland was approved by the U.S. Senate on Monday as the Biden administration's Interior Secretary, making her the first Native American to become a cabinet secretary. She was confirmed by a vote of 51 to 40 to post, which means overseeing a massive agency responsible for roughly 1/5 of land in the U.S., including its many Native American reservations. Haaland, age 60, hails from New Mexico's Laguna Pueblo tribe and already made history in 2018 when she became one of the first 2 Native American women elected to the U.S. Congress. Her appointment was backed by a petition signed by some 120 tribal representatives who urged Biden to make history by picking her. Nigerian media has reported the abduction of 3 teachers at a primary school located in Kaduna State. The event took place in the early hours of this Monday morning when armed men entered the school in the district of Birnin, Gawari, with motorcycles, prompting the students to flee. The state's commissioners for internal security, Samuel Aruwan, detailed through that no students had been reported kidnapped so far while investigations were underway. The latest attack comes a day after Nigerian security forces foiled an attempt to abduct hundreds of school children in the same state. In India, several unions representing workers in the banking sector staged a nationwide strike this Monday against a government plan to privatize public sector banks and retrograde banking reforms. 9 unions under the banner of the United Forum of Bank Unions started the 2-day strike, with as many as 10 million bank employees expected to participate in the action. In New Delhi, there were massive demonstrations of public sector bank employees protesting in the Parliament Street and at the Connaught Palace Financial, Commercial and Business Center. According to multiple local media outlets in Iran, a cargo ship owned by the Islamic Republic Shipping Lines Group was in the Mediterranean en route to Europe when it was hit with an explosive device. Tehran is considering all options in response to the attack, which it believes was conducted by the Israeli regime.
Given the location of the sabotage, there is every reason to think that the occupying regime in Jerusalem is behind this operation. The aggressive behavior of Israel reinforces this assumption. This is a court case that has been presented in a transparent manner. The best way to help resolve this type of issues is by not politicizing them. I advise the UK government, which once took the path of politicizing the case, to allow the legal and judicial process to take its course.
Spanish police have seized a 9-meter narco submarine in southern Spain, believed to be the first such vessel built in Europe. The sub was seized as part of a major operation involving police from Colombia, the Netherlands, and Portugal, the US, and also the United Kingdom, with international activity coordinated by Europe's police agency, Europol. The semi-submersible vessel, which is never fully underwater while being operated, was found inside a warehouse in the port city of Malaga, according to Spanish police statements. It was in the process of being hand-built. Investigators estimated it was being fitted up to transport up to 2 tons of drugs. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts. We're on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English, I am Estefania Bravo. See you next time.